if you think about Holland and Amsterdam, what do you think about first?
Bikes.
Bikes, that's correct.
It's the most common thing in Netherlands, right?
And there's a bike.
Oh, yes.
Why is that bike there? Because one of our newest partners, Student Source, has offered that to one of the participants.
Yeah, so somebody is lucky today, or will be lucky.
Yeah.
And should I be the one to choose?
Do you need
will I be blamed if I don't?
Yeah, you can pick them, and then if your name is called, you jump up and say, yes, yes, that's me.
Okay. What do I get out of it? I mean, because this person will win a bike, so...
You can eat all the chocolate afterwards.
Yes. Okay, the first one. Okay. So Marco Laticus. Yes?
Where's Marco?
Marco is here from MPC Capital.
Marco,
did you disappear? Does that mean that we choose another person?
Yes, of course. Now I'll give him... Are you Marco? Are you Marco?
Marco?
Where's Marco?
No Marco.
No Marco.
I think Marco is in the exhibition, so we are sorry for him, but we will have to choose another person.
No more Marco.
No more Marco.
I want celebration, so I want somebody to jump up.
Yes, please. Oh, that's a complex name. Manel Bassols Ipurja.
He was a panel member. Where is he?
Yeah. Is that Agora Barcelona somehow? No? Yes? Okay, welcome.
Can you use it in Barcelona? Yes?
I think, yeah.
The only problem is that I'm not sure.
Congratulations. Do you know how to bike? Do you know how to bike at least?
Yeah, what a problem I have now.
Yes.
Luggage.
Yeah.
I think it's about 14-day bike ride back to Barcelona.
You can try.
It's a possibility.
So it's yours. So
congratulations,
afterwards,
you can already take it. No, now?
You have to give all the details, and we'll make sure you get it in Barcelona. You don't have to drive yourself.
Thank you very much.
Right, all right.
Congratulations.
So, shall we do the panel first?
Yes. What happened there? Oh, Marco.
Where's Marco?
He's over there. Hello, Marco. You just lost a bike.
I hope you did a wonderful project now, that you had to spend 5 more minutes on the project. Yeah. Okay. So, the panel. Shall we invite our first guest to the table?
Yes. So as you can see from the title, the panel is about wrapping up about the different sessions we had today, and also discussing together how will university cities make magic happen in 2016. Is that possible, and how? So we will invite our 3 speakers, right? So we will start probably with Robert Collen, Professor of Internationalization, Higher Education in, how you pronounce that, Stenden University of Applied Science. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
And I think you had a short presentation?
I did, yes.
Yes, so
go ahead.
The clicker is here for you, and we are ready to hear more about how this first Dutch university that actually opened up campuses abroad.
Correct,
so it's a good example here to share.
Good. Right now we have the red carpet lying out, and we're looking for talent. There is a little message here in the progress of slides. If you look at the Engineering UK report 2015, they're talking about a shortfall of 25,000 engineers per annum for the next 10 years. That's going to have a significant impact, not only on these engineering companies being able to expand, no, it'll even affect their ability to survive. We've thought of engineering in China being cheaper. That's no longer the case. So attracting poorly paid Chinese engineers to the UK won't be the solution. In 2010, 25% of new employed graduates came from a foreign country. By 2020, when the class of 2020 graduates, I think this red carpet needs to be lined with gold, because we will have a global shortage of some 40 million graduates. China is in that boat. It'll have 23 million short. India will have a slight surplus, and Europe will be in the range of -16 to -18 million graduates. Now, you can imagine what's going to happen when there is such a shortage of academically educated persons. Companies will start to want to drill into the pipeline earlier to get more students arranged for their company by virtue of scholarships, etc., simply to survive. There's, of course, all sorts of other effects that could take place. For the literati amongst you, fraying normally is with an A, but I'm combining graying and fraying, and our carpet by 2030 will, I think, be a little bit fraying, because at that time there's also going to be significant shortages, not just of graduates, but mid-level employees as well. More than half of the current workforce will have retired. What I'm introducing here in these 3 slides, in fact, is that things are going to change rather dramatically. 50% of global GDP will come from what I would call the smart cities. The cities that have woken up to the fact that there's going to be a shortage of graduates and talent, and that the knowledge industry is in serious danger of not being able to sustain itself if you don't wake up. And of course, if you look at the paper of Frey and Osborne about what sort of jobs are going to be around, they relate to innovation and technology development as well as social interaction. To plan for 2016, I think, is to plan for 2020 and beyond. And you need to make, as a city, the first few steps now. One of the trends that is worth looking at, and it'll only, I think, increase, is that companies start to mobilize their employees more and more. And the nature of the mobility is changing from long-term assignments, 2, 3, 4 years, to much shorter, less than a 1-year assignment, has doubled in the last 10 years or so. And this trend is also increasing. And why not think about, and I've heard some examples today of a mix of universities, technology parks getting together. Why not start to mix? And I've heard of one company doing this on the side. They're not actually chasing multinationals and saying, hey, I've got some accommodation where we house university students, it's close to a technology park, etc. Maybe your employees, if they need to be flown in for a project in that site, might actually like to be in that environment that's being very carefully constructed with all of the things that young people like. To ensure that mobile students can graduate tomorrow, think about it. 2020 is only a degree away. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
So, you are one of the first universities in our country that moves out, right, to other areas. Why? What's the logic behind it?
Yeah. We wanted to offer our students experiences that we could not generate in the Netherlands. We have a fairly unusual, especially at the time when we started, a fairly unusual form of education based on social constructivism and problem-based learning. And we wanted to give the students, apart from the regular exchange, an option to be able to be internationally mobile and experience opportunities within the paradigms of our education. And so for that reason, we ended up setting up a campus in South Africa, Qatar,
what was
Indonesia,
the biggest
Thailand.
challenge there?
Our accommodation, short-term accommodation. And for example, in Bali, we do a deal with a few hotels to make sure that students have a bit of a choice and it's the right type of accommodation. In South Africa, where we have a different model, we own everything lock, stock, and barrel. I decided specifically, no, we did not want to build accommodation ourselves, even though we could have. I wanted the town to invest in the accommodation for us, because we were, and we're there in a very small town, we're very much connected with the town, but I want people in the town to invest in their university.
Yeah.
So it's a successful model for...
It's worked very well. We have no shortage of supply of accommodation, and if we say we've got more students coming, there is a few small-time investors ready to build us another 30, 40, 50, 60 units.
But even deeper, the fact that you have decided to move out to other countries is a good strategy for you.
Absolutely. If you look at our international mobility, the fastest growing sector is where students move to our international campus sites.
Yeah.
The reason for that has to do with the step going from studying at home to doing exchange for some students is too far, because it's a very solo activity and it's scary. But to go with a few friends from the same education into another place is a sort of an intermediary step. We do see, however, students who go and make this international step. They're very ready to take an international internship and international jobs.
Do you see these trends spreading up in Europe, like other universities competing on this, like to?
Okay, well, we now have, as of a couple of weeks, the second Dutch university that has signed up to have an international campus. That's Groningen University.
Where do they
I
go
think
to?
more will follow.
Where do they go to?
Yantai in China.
Okay.
That's a very challenging environment.
Okay.
Does it help you also to promote your universities, or also having incoming students from those regions?
Okay, from my time in Australia, to have a campus in another country, a regular Australian university would give its left and right arm and possibly another leg to have the same opportunity to promote itself. Yes.
And why don't they do it?
They do it.
Yeah.
Monash has done it. I worked at James Cook University and helped them set up their campus in Singapore. So they do it.
Okay. So it's an international trend.
Well, I mean, from the UK, there is more international students offshore studying with UK universities than onshore.
Okay.
So it's certainly a growing trend.
Yeah. Shall we invite the next speaker?
Yeah.
So Eric Westin from Academics Haas, Deputy Regional Director, and also in charge of a very interesting project that we want to hear about, 6,000 plus Stockholm, right?
Stockholm 6,000 plus.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
pleased to be here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Where do you want me? Over here?
This side we will.
You have the choice.
Thank you.
So yeah, you have this very interesting project where you are bringing very different partners, very different stakeholders to work together.
Yeah.
So universities, developers, builders, operators, investors, and that's a very good example. And I think most of us are looking for how to cooperate in different cities in Europe in that similar way to help students and to help students' mobility in different countries. So what can we learn from you and from the project?
For the first thing, I've learned a lot today. It's been an amazing day. And talking about this project, but this is not my...
No, this is not yours.
Huh?
That's yours.
That could be a tricky one. This is the one. I'm a real estate man. But when I look upon how I spend my days, I see myself more and more as a lobbyist or a catalyst for the university city, and how the physical environment could be a driving, or must be a driving force to make things happening. And this topic that we have here upon these slides is very much an example of that. My platform is a real estate company called Akademiska Hus. This is Swedish, and it's solely owned by the Swedish state. And we, on a commercial basis, we work with facilities for higher education and research. We have not until now been working with housing by developing and owning housing, but very much as a catalyst or a lobbyist for make these things happening. And thank you, Robert, for a very good fund, because this, you really put the spot on why this is so important, what we are here discussing today. what I learned also today that is for me was very fascinating, that this project is sort of an invert version of the class of 2020. Because when this project started with the housing issue, and rather quickly I learned, open up to be a project about the attractivity of the whole city. We started the other end. We started with a project that we call Stockholm, the university capital. And we gather with the universities. We have 17 universities and university colleges in Stockholm. Stockholm is a city of 2 million people. And we gathered with them and asked ourselves, what are the big obstacles for really have this force working? And we found out 3 overall obstacles. The first one was connectivity in between the universities and in between the university and the city and the international scene. The other one was identity. Does this city of 2 million people see themselves as an academic city? And how can we work with it? And the third one was, of course, housing. So we started to get on with the project around housing. And the situation when we started this was a really alarmistic one. I think that's. We had a situation at about 80,000 students, 80 to 100,000 students in Stockholm, and 12,000 student housings. And we had a public report that said that in 2011, 3 out of 10 students considered to leave Stockholm because of this situation. So we had a really great demand for housing and tried to. And what we saw at Academic Square is that to deal with this situation, we need a broad, a lot of different stakeholders to deal with this situation. So we gathered municipalities, construction companies, and other stakeholders together, and we had this common goal to, at least in 4 years, put another 6,000 student housing in place. And we set the goal until 2017. And in 2013, the concept was launched via debate article in one of Sweden's largest papers. And we have the mayors of 8 municipalities in Stockholm, of the vice chancellors of 3 universities and colleges, and so on. And we started this with 3 different kind of stakeholders. We had the municipalities, we had the members with university, colleges, and other public authorities, and we had partners, companies, construction companies, and architects. And the activities we have been working with so far is encourage dialogue between companies, municipalities, to look upon what are the obstacles, how can we overcome them, and so on. We have had different work groups and tried to have innovation in how we should form this student housing, and inspiring seminars and meeting with politicians nationally, and so on and so on. We have debate articles. We had a lot of. And then this is a project that will finalize in the 2017 with a student housing year. That's what we're planning. So that's how we will make magic happen in 2016 to have this plan. So how does it go? This is the results up till now. We have 1,000 finished student rooms from the start of the project. We have another more than 5,000 in plan that we count on will be finished until 2017. And the most important thing is that the situation, the alarmistic situation, was due to that almost nothing had happened in a decade in Stockholm in the student housing. And we have reversed that trend. So this is what it looks like for the coming years in student housing building. The expected outcomes is, of course, increasing amount of student rooms with 50% until 2017, and another 50% the 3 years to come after that. And no one should exclude Stockholm as an alternative to studying because of the housing situation. That's the most important. And the region of Stockholm, of course, will be more attractive and secure the region's future skills. All the good things should happen. And we also have been spreading this as a model, and it has been taken up by Gothenburg and Lund with similar projects. That was it.
Yeah. Actually, the Chamber of Commerce released some data about Stockholm, limiting number of housing supply, having an impact directly in the economic growth of the city.
Yes. We are lacking 140,000 housings in Stockholm. So
Is that, but is that part of the demographic process in Sweden? Because I don't think you have the same issue as in other European cities. You're not growing that fast anymore, or do
no,
you?
Stockholm is actually growing.
So
Stockholm
it's
is one of the successful cities that's growing very,
Exactly.
very
So
fast.
it's a city that attracts these.
Yeah.
What was your biggest obstacle?
In this project,
Yes.
to keep on struggling. Because if you have
You get tired. You get tired.
People get tired,
Yeah.
and they get obsessed with other things.
Yeah.
We have a different majority politically,
Yeah.
because we have 8 municipalities. The mayors of this have changed to election during this period. So we have worked really a lot with not having the politicians taking side against and so on.
And what was your? How did you? Why was it so successful? What is the most important reason, apart from yourself, that you were so successful?
Now, the political commitment,
From whom?
From top, from the very top, that from the start, we went to the top of the municipalities and the public authorities.
It was considered a common goal.
Yeah,
They supported that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Shall we invite the last speaker of the panel, Steven Zeman, Managing Director, Continental Europe at Greystar. There as well, Continental Europe. I first thought was the truck company, but then I understood was Continental Europe.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Does that exclude UK and Cyprus, right? Continental Europe.
If it excludes UK, I can call it Europe now, isn't it? Yeah.
So yeah, you're investing a lot in Europe, and you started with UK, acquisition of some thousands rooms, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm mistaken.
Right. I
You have a
also
presentation,
made a couple
yes.
of slides that can help.
You have-
So actually, these are 2 buildings we are very proudly own since this year. Or actually, this one I was personally quite involved with. It's in Amsterdam, the campus Diemen. It's almost 1,000 students. It's an office conversion. And the Spitalfield is an old Nido building that we bought this year in the portfolio. But I think we are very proud, so I wanted to put it in the slides to show the buildings we now own, and not only own, but also manage. And I think that's an important thing if we go to the next slide, where I can tell a little bit more about Greystar, that we don't only invest, but that we also operate our properties. So as you can see, Greystar comes from the US, and in the US they always like to throw out numbers, and because big is good. So hopefully it shows big is good. And what it does bring, and I think there are some benefits in being big, is, for example, if you look at systems. So we work with Yardi, and we are a very big client for them. So if we have requests that we want to have with systems in Europe, we have a different access with them and a different way of working together than if we would not have had the US operations with them. So there is a benefit in having size. But as you can see, we are almost present in all metropolitan areas in the US. And the main focus is just multifamily, as they call it in the US. So that is housing for non-students, for professionals. And the common theme you see in projects in the US is very often they are sizable. It can be 500 units. And it's almost a hotel resort-like experience for people from Europe, because you have a lot of amenities, which can be a pool or a rooftop terrace or a barbecue. And another important thing is what you normally have, it's on-site managed. So you have people on site that provide service, that treat you as a resident instead of a tenant, and also do the leasing and the marketing on site. So it's a different perspective in how you operate residential properties. Well, and that is, I think, the essential mindset, how we with Greystar look at projects in Europe and what we want to bring and where we believe in. So London, we started almost 3 years ago. So there we now have a significant operation. We grew a lot in the student housing. because what they call PRS in the UK hardly exists. So that's something we want to also be involved in and create, but that you need to develop because that asset class is not there yet, where student housing was available. So that's why we have been quite successful in growing a portfolio there and have become a player in the market. And we hope to grow into Europe. So our second stop in Europe is Amsterdam or the Randstad area. And because we think there's a very good business case to invest in residential housing and also student housing in this part of the world. And I think what is very important is that what we discuss within Greystar is that don't look too much or think in countries in Europe, but think in metropolitan areas, because it are the metropolitan areas that do well and are growing. And then if you then look at the Netherlands, what you actually see, if they should have picked a better name than the Randstad, because it's not marketable, that name, but call it Greater Amsterdam or something different, then all of a sudden you have 7 million people and more than 300,000 students in this area. And if you would put that in the rankings, then it really compares well with a London and a Paris and a Berlin. So that's how we would like to look at this area in the Netherlands and why it is so attractive for us to be here. It's a large metropolitan area. Next slide, please. Yep. So maybe some specifics on the campus, because we received lots of questions. Question number 1 is, what did you pay for it? And question number 2 is the yield. And well, if you have read some of the news, apparently we have paid between 80 million euros and 140 million euros. So there's a wide range of potential outcomes there, but someone was right there. And then on yields, what's also is very interesting, so we had a panel today in which the UK person mentioned, well, yields in the UK dropped from a 6 to a 4.5. And then someone, I believe, out of Germany mentioned, oh, we are still at a 6. But I think there was a big difference, because the UK person probably was talking net yields, where the German person was talking gross yields. But I'm not sure whether somebody can confirm that. But I think this is a very good example where you see that within Greystar, everybody asked me about net yields, where being on the continent in the market, everybody talks gross yields. And so a lot of things go lost in translation, and that's a real challenge what we see that we need to overcome, because a gross yield, especially for student housing, if you do a model with service and amenities, which is a much higher operating cost to run, it's difficult to compare that to residential gross yields or other gross yields. So I think coming back to transparency and operating cost, that probably is still an area where we can do a lot together to get much more information and make it a better conversation that we all know what we are talking about.
Transparency.
Yeah, and I know your question, but I'm not going to share it.
Next question is, so how much did you pay for it? That's if you want transparency.
Yeah. No.
But you're not going to answer that, right?
No, I'm not allowed. Maybe
slide.
back to, sorry?
Next slide.
No, sorry, going back to campus.
Well,
because
I do have one question, and you can please then continue with your presentation. And I'm not going to ask the question about the price, but this was a redevelopment of a office area.
Yeah.
Was it vital that the price of the offices were so low that was possible? I mean, is this a common model, or is this a weird example that only happens once in a lifetime, that you could buy so much real estate for that low price?
Prices.
I think it's not the only one, but it's, for us, it was a unique opportunity to be able to buy an existing property, and that comes so close to the model what we like. And that is about, you have a lot of units together and a lot of amenities, and there's on-site management. This is one of the few.
Okay.
So for us, this was a unique opportunity to start our business here, and so we are very happy to.
Because there's a lot of talking in our country about redeveloping offices. We have lots of offices in this country empty, more than 20% almost now. And so the question, but everybody's talking about the redevelopment, but can it really happen? And there are specific conditions, that's what you're saying, in order to make it happen.
Yeah, so looking at this project, if you can't see it, but this is on top of the train and metro station. It's literally 50 meters walk. So without the train and metro station, it would not have been a success. I think that was number one that is very important. So it's only 3 train stops or metro stops to the Zuidas or going to the universities in the city center. So from a public transportation perspective, it's really well located, although for Dutch people it may be in the southeast, which is still the area in Amsterdam that you have to be open to accept that a lot of people live there and that it is in a better condition than it was in the past. I think that was another benefit. With us, with an American background, we don't have that demon connotation as some of Amsterdam people may have. And we look at this as an area that is really undergoing a change. And you have a large Holland Park residential development going on. So it's not only the campus demon, but adjacent to it, there will be 5,000 people living there 5 years from now. There will be 3,000 high-quality apartments constructed. And what made it really attractive to us is the campus demon has the Albert Heijn, the grocery store, and there will not be an Albert Heijn in the Holland Park area. So there will be a lot of traffic going through campus demon to the supermarket, to the train station. So we think it's a strategic location in that area, why it appealed to us. And then another thing is why it was so interesting is that in between that Holland Park area and our campus, there's still a parking lot that we can redevelop. So we have 2 decisions to make on that, because looking at the campus, it was so popular among Dutch students that there are hardly foreign students in it. So either we are going to program the development really towards the foreign student and accommodate to them. So it will be more on the shorter stay, and we need the furniture and everything you see in our London buildings. But another very interesting category that maybe is not of the minds of the focus of the people here, but what I think is a really even bigger group than the students are the young professionals. Because in the Netherlands you now have the so-called campus contract. So if you are done, you pass your exams, you have to move out your student accommodation in 6 months. And where do you go to? Because a lot of those young professionals that are starting in the market, they cannot afford a big house yet. So I think what could be perfect for us is to add towards the student campus a young professional building. Instead of a studio of 27 square meter, maybe it should be a 1-bedroom of 45 square meter, a double studio. But there will be a huge demand for it. And also that group, we think, will really appreciate all the amenities and services of the fitness and of the supermarket that is there.
We're talking here about early graduates, interns, or young workers.
I think people that just found a job.
Yeah.
And cannot afford a house within the ring of Amsterdam.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Okay.
so
Was that
that on this, I did a small interview what people like about
No, back again.
the campus. You could read it, but it's safety. It's the number 1 for the parents, and internet is the number 1 for the residents.
We know that
we're-
before showers.
Yeah. And so what is missing for us, what we would like to add, is the online leasing and online payment possibilities and furniture and things like that. So that's Campus Diemen.
All right.
There were a few more slides, but I think
Yeah.
we can, as we go with the discussion, we
that's
can
fine.
go
Yeah.
through them. So no need to go into...
Yeah, so the question was, what is our ambition? Well, we would like to grow our Greystar business into Europe. And we look at Europe as I
Why?
mentioned, for the metropolitan areas. So the question is, what is another interesting place for us? Will it be a Vienna or a Berlin or a Copenhagen? But I think it will be the larger dominant cities in certain parts, because you don't only have students, but you have the jobs and the young professionals there. And I think I also asked 3 of our colleagues that all have studied abroad, why did you pick that location? So maybe it's not empirical, but I thought it was good evidence. Number 1 was ranking of the university, and number 2 was the job opportunity afterwards. So I think how we look at the future opportunity, where are the cities where you have jobs, because that is where people want to be.
So that's in the next city? Sorry, I'm curious to know where to go.
Yeah. But the story that we started.
440 cities in emerging economies that are going to represent 50% of the global GDP. So I haven't heard anyone talk about beyond Europe. Maybe that's not the topic of the conference, but it seems to me that faced with that sort of enormous development, that there are some opportunities there as well. And we just heard our Liberian student this morning who said, and when I'm done, I go back home and work on my country. And he's right to do so, because it's going to go like that.
So is your story a support of his story, that there is a tremendous growth in academic demand for academic educated people, and so as an investor you step on that train, and you will find that in the major cities in Europe. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but what I also like about major cities, if this campus will not work out as a student campus 10 years from now, I'm pretty sure other people would like to live there.
Yeah.
And that would be my biggest concern.
Okay.
So how
So you're still focusing. You still have this other opportunity for your product if all else fails.
Yes.
Was that part? You are very focused on student housing, right?
No, I could agree on that, because when we're talking about successful cities, I believe, and that has very much been the topic today, should the student housing be within the campus, within the curriculum of the university, or what could the qualities be when it's outside? And the investors, we want to have a second use or a second chance of opportunity if the demand isn't there in 10 years. And I think the strategy must be very much both and. Okay. And the Stockholm 6000 Plus is very much both and. Because we have never had the idea that we should put 25,000 students within the campus areas. We don't believe in that. But we should have a certain amount of housing within the campus area to make that a vibrant campus, just for that use. And then we have the curriculum thing. That's interesting as well.
I sort of hear this hesitancy and this sort of second option. 20 years ago, I joined this international education business, shall we call it, and every year since then, there's been about a growth of 6% per year of additional international students. I'm talking about full degree seeking students. The predictions were made in 2002 that in 2025 we'd have 8 million. The way we're going right now is that we'll be double from where we are today, which is 5 million. So
there is a potential. That's pretty clear. But the question is there's an investor who likes
invest
and who wants a very nice net yield. That's what he explained to us. Here's a city that for itself has decided that you need the residential in order to tag on the international development. There's somebody who's saying, so what would do you believe that this is a government thing to do, or is this something that the free market will take care of because the demand is as big as it is?
I'm an economist. I believe in the market force, but the market should be managed.
Yeah.
And
managed in what sense? I mean, what
imagine it's a lot about to catalyze the right things to happen.
Yeah.
I during the dinner yesterday, I was speaking a lot with one of the colleagues here from the Amsterdam municipality, and she spoke about how they have program manager for different topics that was politically selected. And I think that's very much to make the market work.
Yeah.
And all the stakeholders must have the possibility to have their own agenda.
Because in the end also, would it have happened without your involvement, without your project?
No.
The market doesn't...
No. It hasn't happened for a decade before we started.
Why? Why do you think?
It needs management, leadership.
Okay.
That's what it's all about.
All right.
I believe the lawmakers do have a role to play, though. If you look at Australia some time ago, the Minister for Immigration and the Cabinet decided we would hand 32,000 permanent residencies to students who'd done a 2-year degree or more. Now, Australia shares very little other than a love of cricket with India, and we had before that, ruling about 7,000 Indian students in the country. That rose to 35,000 Indian students on the basis of this PR ticket. The Netherlands has changed its rules. A few years ago, you needed an enormous salary to be allowed to stay, and you had to find a job within 3 months. They came to their senses and said, you can stay a year, and you need to find a job for a regular graduate salary. So I think lawmakers do play a role, because as soon as you start talking about moving people across borders, there are sensitivities, as we've seen over the last few months.
What do you see as the biggest challenge for these cities in order to achieve, to tag on, like Stockholm tried to do
And then
on this
big
new development?
cities
Well,
versus small
I think I
cities
made
as
it
well?
clear, to be able to attract talent, and when
What does attract them?
the pipeline is in demand, then they start to act like prima donnas.
What does what does
Good
attract?
accommodation,
Good
a
accommodation.
good experience,
Yeah.
a good environment within which to learn.
Can you make it a little bit more tangible for me? What is that? What is important? What makes an interesting potential?
Yeah, I think to the student who's looking to advance their career, the jump to a good education followed by employment. Students are more and more focused on what am I going to do after I graduate.
Yeah, but that was actually at this panel we had this in the morning. One of the sessions we discussed this, how actually with marketing we are becoming top destinations, and of course for some countries they attract a lot of international students, but we usually then they tend to forget as well the barriers they have to actually work in Europe for different reasons like visa or work permits. So this is something, this transparency is needed also in the marketing when we recruit international students. So,
But what I'm thinking also on that topic and that question, we should never forget the soft questions. To the Liberian guy, you asked him, did anyone say welcome to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that thing? We're talking about culture. We're talking about why do you want to stay in a place? What do you feel when you come to New York? Why do you love New York today and maybe didn't love it 20 years ago, or things like that? We have to work with those soft things as well.
So convince me of Stockholm. I'm a young guy, 20 years old.
You come to Stockholm and you will never forget it.
that's
No,
an
it
easy
has-
one.
no,
that's
it
an easy
has
one.
to be
No,
better
but
than that.
Should we maybe just
It's a
open
mixture
up?
of the beauty of the city and the warmth feeling when you learn to learn people, and the opportunities, the vibrance of new business coming around. We have the IT boom of Stockholm that you can feel if you are in the right
In
place.
the last session where I was, we had a terrific suggestion, and that was that love will make you stay in Stockholm, and I'm not love.
I know
In
about
many
love for
cases,
relations.
that's one of the reasons.
Sorry, I
yeah.
forgot that one.
So shall we maybe open
Yeah,
the questions to the audience as well before they fall
Are
asleep?
you going to throw or I'm going to throw?
Oh, this time it's
Yeah,
yours.
that's what I would say.
Okay,
This is
let's
more.
be fair.
Yes.
So yeah, we have a first hand here. Ready?
Questions.
Here in the middle. Here. Up.
Back to
The light
Paris.
is very difficult to
Thank
see.
you. It's a question for Stephen. I was a bit surprised when you said that you will offer housing for young workers, for example, who finish their studies, and that they would pay, lower rents within your accommodation than in a free market. My experience is that when you're an operator and you offer service apartments or operated apartments, it's actually a higher price that you ask for your accommodation.
Well, I think the reason why young professionals are so interesting because it's a bigger group in the end of potential residents. So I think it's a lower risk category in a certain way. From a value perspective, if your project is considered residential, it still has a higher value than if it's labeled student, because there's a smaller group of investors that would like to invest in it. So that are two things. And on the third, on the rent levels, specifically in the Netherlands, you have regulations, and it does not make a difference whether you are a student or a young professional in a studio. You have the same regulations for the amount of rent you can charge. But that being said, with a young professional, you can of course have a larger flat or studio or one bedroom, and then if you have it with the right finishes, you have enough points that you can be in the free market segment.
So if there was one thing you would change in the regulations about housing in the Netherlands, what would that be?
I would like, well, only one.
Two.
I think the landlord levy tax is a heavy burden.
Okay. That's an additional tax you pay in order
for
to...
units that are in the regulated sector. It was
Yes.
meant for the housing associations,
Yes.
but it's also hitting the private investors really hard. I think that's a painful
That's
one.
tax. That's tax. That's not a regulation. That's just paying.
Well, it's a tax regulation. And then another thing is in the point system, we are headquartered in The Hague for the Netherlands, so I'm very close to the ministry and allowed to have some coffee once in a while. And there are a couple of items we are discussing, and specifically for the Dutch market, and that is that if they can come up with an idea that smaller units in expensive areas of the Netherlands would get extra points in some way or another, because the demand is from young people, single-person households in the cities. And the government wants to stimulate that product is created. So what I'm asking for, okay, come up with regulations that will help. So make it less regulated if you make that kind of product or create extra points.
New regulations to take care of the old regulations. That's
Basically.
new regulations to take care of old regulations.
That's their solution, because you have...
What's your solution?
Well, in the ideal world, you get rid of it, but that's not something that's not realistic to expect.
Questions?
Or remarks,
Questions?
additional
questions?
projects.
Yeah.
I've heard.
I'm
lots
going
of
to
projects.
try to, because it's the end of the day, I'm feeling bold, so I'm going to try to get it to you. Yes. I'm sorry.
Do not throw.
Missed it
ahead
by
of-
that much.
It would be nice to see the previous slide. You had
This one?
information. The one before?
This?
Yeah, the bottom right.
South Africa?
10 destination of international students. I can see that there is no Italy there. And there
from
is the
Italy.
Italian flag over there. Or that's maybe from this side Irish. But anyway, any reason why there is no Italian projects or intention or analysis or program of any kind?
This
Yes,
graph was made by my UK colleague, so I think that's driving the countries that are on it. But because the Netherlands is also not on it.
But
I
Robert,
can say
you had the
say
answer.
something about Italy. I've just done a small study on Italy. Italy has a very large number of foreign students, except they're not in Italian universities. They are in what we would call American island programs, like the Duke program in Venice, or etc. So it's American universities who've set up a small campus and residential facility in Italy, and that's where these international students in Italy end up. That doesn't mean they're not there, but they're not in the sort of numbers that are represented in this graph.
What is the most important thing you learned today?
That it's about the whole experience, it's about a mix of people, it's about a mix of utility in terms of where it is, the coming together of knowledge creation and valorization sort of organizations blended together. I mean, one of the things I'd be crying is that the Leiden Bioscience Park, for example, doesn't have smack bam in the middle an accommodation facility for students and early career professionals and get this creativity going.
What did you learn today?
Or not?
I think this day has opened my eyes for the fact that there are many more stakeholders that actually are working with these topics and working very, very professionally with facilitate the university city.
Yeah.
In the, yeah.
Okay. What did you learn today?
I think the UK operator of Unite made a very interesting remark that he mentioned. You think you put an amenity in it for 7 years, but 2 years out, it's already outdated. You don't know what the future is important. I thought that was a nice statement.
Flexibility in your investment, in your projects.
Actually, before we invite Frank for wrapping up, I just wanted to once again repeat the very important project that was mentioned this morning from the European Commission, the Erasmus Plus project. I've been working in the education field for the past 10 years, and that's the first time where the European Commission is funding a project on such a specific issue, the accommodation issue. And I think I invite all of you to somehow get to know more this project, because it's bringing together students' organizations, university organizations like big umbrella associations, providers from Germany, and when I say providers, accommodation providers, public ones, from Germany and France, the most difficult markets of students' accommodation in Europe, and private providers like Uniplaces, Housing Anywhere, and different partners. It's the first time where all these different stakeholders are coming together to work on an issue that was not considered an European issue. So we have we haven't an issue here, but we have a lot of opportunities to work together as well. So I really wanted to point it out, the importance of such a project.
Well, what did you learn today?
What did I learn? Yes, to confirm, it's really vital that we work together.
Okay.
It's absolutely very important that all private, public, non-profit, all stakeholders together, they have to work together, because students' experience is not just the matter of the problem of one stakeholder, it's of everyone, the society as a whole. So I think we really have to work together. That's what I learned, that there are initiatives, there are people that want to work, people that want to put efforts together to combine those forces, and I think we should continue like this, and that's what I learned today.
What I learned today is that over the 4 years I'm presenting this meeting, this congress, we have moved slowly from there is an opportunity, we are lacking interest in this specific group of investment products, to where we are today, your story, and I guess also your story, that this is a huge opportunity, that this is an enormous demand, and the only thing that's lacking is some smart people that can connect people to understand that demand and to turn that demand into a new product. And that product is just not only residential, it's also all the amenities that are part of that. And I'm very happy that compared to 4 years ago, we have investors now on the table who really put their money where their mouth is, although they're not telling us how much money they put there. Well, we'll figure that out. So that is a major change. So we almost become an established congress because we have investors, we have everybody together, and this is a real product. And saying that, I want to invite Frank, our godfather again.
He will tell us more what he learned today.
Yes, that was the
he
first
has
question
been
to
doing
him.
this for the 5 past years, so maybe something new this year.
Or maybe he's just running around all day long and hasn't heard anything.
And saying hello to everyone. So, Frank. You don't like the box?
Too vain for that. To have that in front of me.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, closing panel. And thank you, everybody, for being here today. It's indeed not the first time we were doing this, and also not the first time we were wrapping up. But it's also nice that we're not stuck in the same conclusion.
No, exactly. There's an evolution.
Yeah, there is. And I think one of the questions that you asked earlier this morning to PGGM, to Henk, was like, what are you doing with my pension money? And I guess the question is, like, what are we doing as Europeans, including the UK, with our money in general? And what we saw today was that there is a shift towards metropolitan areas where really our economic future is, and that people getting together at that level, trying to overcome maybe the old school, traditional, national barriers, and that we will find solutions in those areas. So when you asked PGGM, are you going to invest in the Netherlands, that market was too small. Maybe next year we should ask, are you applying a metropolitan strategy.
Yes,
No?
yes, and then it doesn't. Then he can think about Amsterdam again.
Yeah, and actually we gave him today the fog,
Yes,
so he has a year
yes.
to work on to make the magic happen.
Yeah.
It's not about students anymore, it's about talent.
Yeah.
That was one of my major conclusions.
Okay.
And we knew that this was going to be the conclusion, but it was really interesting to see it confirmed today. There's still a lot of questions out there. I think we learned a lot about kind of our knowledge gaps. The potential of student housing for the academic career, the potential of student housing as being part of the city's proposition to talent. And Tom said today that, Akuho is launching a research initiative. Vanessa did it at the European level. And as a foundation, the class of 2020 will do that as well. We're going to investigate with the partners, the details, the questions that were raised today. The transparency question was already addressed this afternoon by INREF with one of the panels. But I think it's super important that we really can advocate for investment in student housing and understanding what kind of student housing we need to build to be able to be future-proof, so to say. I was a little bit disappointed on the affordability question.
That was my panel, so.
Yeah, I know, yeah. And it was not the heat, I think.
Personal?
Yeah. No, I'm disappointed in it, not because of the contributions of the people that were there.
Conclusions.
But there was no conclusion. No, we don't have answers to that yet.
No.
And we need to really break through barriers. And when you mentioned the point system, of course there are limitations, and maybe we move from point system to bonus point system or whatever.
Sounds better.
It sounds better. You get rewards if you do more.
You get a bike.
Yeah.
When you do it right.
But the affordability question will be there. It's not about only student refugees, but it's about people coming from lower income families where academic traditions have not been there. And that generation needs to have the same access, to be able to get these.
But I truly believe, and that was my conclusion, I know it was not the conclusion, that we have to shift that from regulations and budget for the units to supporting of people, of refugees, of people that come over. That for me is a much more clearer model than all these complicated things in which all the countries are a little bit different, and that doesn't help your transparency issues.
Diversity, actually, it's the key word. I mean, we want diversity. Yeah. We want to have in our local environments every group, social, economic background to be present and to be represented. Yeah.
So it's counterintuitive because legal systems like rents, regulations, or investment boundaries, or whatever you want to call it, are in nature counterintuitive because you feel that it's not the reality of today, but it's at the same time it's determining whether your school can go international because it's a decision made in The Hague, for example, which you don't necessarily control. But I guess it's a fact of life. But what I think where the affordability and all the other issues will find answers is that there will be a diverse answer, a package of answers, and not one size fits all. But I think we should invest in answers.
Yeah. And we should invest in people, and which is.
Yeah, I think scholarships is also a new way and quite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there are many more ways. And the investment community and other communities can contribute. Yeah. We learned from Italy that if you see it as a grant for talent.
Exactly.
And Robert, your story is basically there are a lot of stakeholders that are really eager to invest in them because they need them 2 years after they come to your city.
We have study portal scholarship recently. I mean, several ones, uni places. So there are some initiatives that we can pick from, and
so we're going to do that. That was my commitment.
Exactly.
Also for we hope to continue this platform with the support of all the partners. I think we need to reach out more to the metropolitan regions and to also connect you guys with what your colleagues in Amsterdam, which we are doing over dinner already. But I mean, I think there's a lot to achieve there. Bring in the money's there. That's clear. The money's there. So we'll use that opportunity. Yeah. There's a high chance that next year we won't meet in Amsterdam.
Oh.
Yeah. We don't.
Another metropolitan area.
You can win a bike if you guess it right.
Come to the next destination.
You're
Mr.
welcome
Zeeman.
to Stockholm.
Well, there you go. There
Good try. Good try.
And there's a lot more coming this year. So we'll keep everybody informed. Thank you very, very much for being here today. Thank you very much for making this a super fast growing family. We will continue to serve your knowledge needs, your network needs. We're very proud of what we achieve with your support. So I really hope that we will meet again next year. I think it's the 9th and the 10th, if I remember. I should know this.
Yeah, it's written.
Yeah, it's written.
9th.
Okay, excellent. So mark it in your agendas. Last but not least, this day and many other things were made possible by a small team. Yeah. And I thought it would be good if I mentioned those and that we can give them a nice warm applause. It's Wouter, Nimesh, and Marlies driving it, and the support of a lot of volunteers and interns. So thank you very much, guys. I don't know where you are.
Can I finish then by telling the panel thank you very much for being here and ending this day, and thank you for being there, and hope to see you next year, wherever that may be.
Yeah, and we just deregulated the beer, so it's going to be available.
With
Perfect. So we can continue our networking with the beer.
it means subsidized beer. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.